Okay, peace and blessing to all the viewers out there tuning in. And today's episode, we're going to touch on the topic of what does God look like? When I say what does God look like, I'm referring to the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What does he look like? Many people have their own perception on what God looks like. Some people think that he's just an entity or a brain just floating out of space. He doesn't have any shape or form. He's just kind of everywhere he wants, just all over the place. That's a perception a lot of people have of God. Some people don't care what it looks like, especially professing Christians. A lot of them don't care what it looks like. And that's a wrong spirit to be in, because you should care to know about what the God that you're worshiping looks like, especially when he has a description of himself. Because you don't want to be worshiping some three-headed dragon or something like that unaware. So you got to want to know this question. So that's what we're going to touch on in today's lesson. Without further ado, let's get into it. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Most people have read this verse and have no clue that it's telling you exactly what God looks like. He says, "Let us make man in our image." What is the us there is referring to? He's talking about the angel and Yahushua HaMashiach, who you ignorantly call Jesus Christ. They were all there at the time of the creation. And God is giving them the schematics or the blueprint on how to create man. 5 days have passed already, and they've already created the heaven and the earth and all the inhabitants of the earth, all the creatures. So now is the sixth day. It's time to create man to have dominion over everything that has been created. And he's telling them, let us make man the way we look. What is the word image means? Dictionary.com. Image, a physical likeness or representation of a person, animal, or thing, photographed, painted, sculptured, or otherwise made visible. So image is a physical manifestation. It actually means what he says. So in other words, when God says, let us make man in our image, it means let us make man the way we look. Have head, ears, nose, 2 arms, 2 legs, and fingers and toes. That's what he was telling them. Let us make man the way we look, to have dominion over everything that has been created. Now, so don't get it twisted. That don't mean that God gave us his personality or his characteristic. That God did not give man his personality traits. That's not what it means. Isaiah 55, verse 8 through 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thought. You see, so God is letting you know as clear as day that he doesn't think the way you think, and he doesn't act the way you act. God doesn't think it's okay to put abortion clinics in neighborhoods to encourage people to abort babies. He says, thou shalt not kill. God doesn't believe in man creating genetically modified food. God made food the way it was supposed to be made, naturally. God doesn't think it's okay for 2 men to come together. He doesn't ascribe to that. God doesn't ascribe for 2 men to walking down the aisle and get married. So God's thoughts are not the same as man. God is on a totally different platform. He doesn't think the way you think, and he doesn't act the way you act. Numbers chapter 12, verse 6 through 8. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches. And the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. So now God is telling you that he's going to reveal himself. He's going to make himself known to the prophet in a vision or in the dreams. He's going to make himself seen by the prophet in the dream or a vision. But Moses is going to be the one to actually see him in person. Moses is going to see God in person. So now we're going to go back to the account in the wilderness where Moses, for the first time, actually saw God in person. And he said, I beseech thee, show me thy glory. So this is Moses speaking to God. He says, I want to see a little something. Show me a little something, if it may be your will. And he said, I will make all my goodness pass before thee, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before thee, and will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. And he said, thou canst not see my face, for there shall no man see me and live. And the Lord said, behold, there is a place by me, and thou shalt stand upon the rock. And it shall come to pass, while my glory passeth by, that I will put thee in the cliff of the rock, and will cover thee with my hand while I pass by. And I will take away my hand, and thou shalt see my back part, but my face shall not be seen. He told Moses that he's going to uncover his hand so that Moses can see his back part, which means the back side of God, from the head all the way down to the feet. He said, I'm going to uncover my hand so he can see my back part, but my face shall not be seen, because no man can see my face and live. That's what he told Moses. That don't mean that God is some hideous thing or scary thing. That just means that there's so much power and glory behind his face. As soon as he turn around and look at you, you're going to bite the dust. You're going to give up the ghost. You're going to die so quick. There's a chance that you might be meeting heaven. You're going to die so quick. That's why he told Moses, you cannot see my face. He had to tell him again, you cannot see my face. I'm just going to allow you to see my back part, but my face shall not be seen, because no man can see me and live, because there's so much power behind his face. If God turns around and look at you, you're going to give up the ghost. It's a terrible thing to look at someone who can do all of these things. It's like you don't even have you can't even imagine what that instant would be like. That's why he told Moses, you cannot see my face, because no man can see me and live. So what is that telling you? That God has a face. God has a face. He already told Moses that you're going to see my back part. Moses is the only one who saw God in person. He saw God in person. He met God in the wilderness when they came out of Egypt. He saw the backside of God, but he couldn't see the face of God. Why? We already went over it. You're going to bite the dust. You're going to give up the ghost. You're going to die so quick. You cannot see the face of God. You can't see the face of God. Moses saw God by the back side. He only saw the back parts of God, He didn't see the face of God. So that tells you that God has a face, according to the Bible. Whether you want to believe it or not, God has a face. Daniel chapter 7 verse 9. I beheld till the throne was cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. So this is the God Almighty. This is the prophet Daniel who saw God in a vision. He's calling him the Ancient of Days. Why? Because he was before time. Time has a beginning. Time, space, and matter had to come to an existence at the same time. God was before. God is the one who created those three elements. God was before time. So that's why he's called the Ancient of Days. And Daniel saw God sitting. The prophet Daniel saw God sitting on his throne. In order to be sitting, you have to have a body. And let me say it again. In order to be sitting, you have to have a body. I cannot say that I'm sitting and not having buttocks or legs or back. In order to be sitting, you need to have a buttock, legs, and an arm, whose garment was white as snow. God had on a garment, meaning clothes. God had on a garment, which means that God has a body, whether you want to believe it or not. It's going to be hard for a lot of people to digest, but this is just the truth. This is in the Bible. God had a garment, which is white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. God has hair like the pure wool. Who has woolly hairs? The so-called Negroes, black men and black women. They're the one walking around with the woolly hairs. And you've been taught to hate the woolly hair that you have. And guess what? God, the Most High God, has the same kind of hair that you hate, what you call nappy. You've been taught in society that the standard is stringy hair. You've been taught to perm your hair and depress it. But guess what? God has the same hairs that you hate. You need to appreciate your woolly hair. The Clarendon Dictionary. Wool, the soft curled hair of sheep and other animals. Closely curled hair of Negroes. Revelation chapter 4 verse 2 to 3. And immediately I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone. So this is the prophet John giving a revelation of God. He's telling you what God looks like. You saw God sitting on his throne. And then he's told you that what he saw on the throne looks like a jasper and a sardine stone. This is exactly what God looks like. In other words, he's telling you the color of the skin complexion of God is like a jasper or a sardine stone. You can look it up yourself. I'm not going to say anything about that. You can look it up yourself, and you will see exactly what God looks like on his throne. So now, in conclusion, we know that God has a body. He has a face. God had on a garment, which is white as snow, and he has woolly hairs, like Negroes' hairs. No doubt about it. This is in the Bible. And he also says that God looks like a jasper or a sardine stone, his skin complexion. But that don't mean that God has the blood running through his vein. He doesn't bleed blood. That's not what it means. Or he doesn't have a heart. Maybe he does, at least of my knowledge. But God gave us his physical component. If you were to see a silhouette of God, it wouldn't look any different of that of a man. But he doesn't bleed blood, because when you read the Bible, there are two types of bodies. There's a terrestrial body and a celestial body. All flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of man, another flesh of beast, another flesh of fishes, and another of birds. There are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrials, but the glory of the celestial is one, and the glory of the terrestrial is another. So according to the Bible, there are two types of body. There's a celestial body and a terrestrial body. And this body here on earth is confined to the third dimension. That's why it's not meant to be going up there in space. But the celestial body can be all over the place. Can go up there, can be up there in space and come down here in this atmosphere. But the celestial body cannot go up there in the space because it does not support the elements that are out there. So now you understand exactly what God looks like. God has a body. He has a face. He's not just a thought. He's not just what you want him to be. God has a body. He has a form. He has a shape. God looks like man, or vice versa. Man looks just like God. God gave us his physical representation. Anything else didn't get the privilege to look like God. Human beings we get the privilege to look like God. God created man in his own image to have dominion over everything else. That's why everything else didn't get the privilege to look like God. We mimic that image of God. That's what he says. So hopefully you got a clear understanding on what God looks like. So now stay tuned for the next videos, and like the videos, subscribe to the channels, and share the videos so that the word can be spread throughout the four corners of the earth as prophesied. And with that, I say peace and blessings.